All right, and as Elizabeth mentioned, this is one of our workshops in our Lex Advanced series, and this one is quite timely, and we've titled this Utilizing Brightspace to Help Your Students Stay on Track. I always like to start off the workshop inviting you that if you do tweet to join the conversation about EdTech, educational technology, use the hashtag EdTech, FactDev, and tag ZulaCat. The workshop slides can be found on our wiki, and you can go to this URL, catwiki.zula.edu/ontrack, or you can use that QR code, which will get you there as well. And if our producer can drop that, I forgot to mention, Mark is going to be our producer as well as the voice of the chat. Okay, great. All right, and as Elizabeth mentioned about the Learn Everywhere Zula course, and as you all know, it was designed around Quality Matters standards. And in particular, Quality Matters Standard 3.5 says the course provides learners with multiple opportunities to track their learning progress with timely feedback. Also, the 7 Principles of Good Pedagogical Practice by Chickering and Gamson, principle number 5 says emphasizes time on task. And in particular, learning to use one time well is critical for students as well as professionals. So allocating realistic amounts of time means effective learning for students and effective teaching for faculty. I want to start out by talking about checklists. And in his book, The Checklist Manifesto, Atul Gawande argues that one of the most basic organizational tools is, in fact, the simple checklist. It can be effective, improve the effectiveness for individuals as well as teams. So checklists are effective because they put everything you need to do right in front of you. You can see the beginning, the middle, and the end of what needs to be done. In his article, Different Styles of Checklists, Joe Turner says there are 3 different styles: a project, procedural, and a communication checklist. And project basically lists the tasks that must be completed. Procedural is the steps that you must follow in order. And then the communication checklist encourages communication in organizations. You can use checklists in your courses to highlight important or required assignments, improve the effectiveness of learners who are navigating your course, and as a requirement to control access to other materials. And this will be done by applying release conditions. There's a benefit to learners because it's going to focus their minds on important objectives. They are less likely to forget to do tasks. It would show them the bigger picture of things that must be done across the course, and they feel more in control by, they can decide on their priorities. They are less likely to become sidetracked, and it also gives them a record of what they've completed and what they have left to do. You can create checklists that account for tasks that have to be completed in a particular order. So this would allow learners to be able to just check off tasks as they are completed. You can create a checklist that will allow for review of completed course content. You can also create checklists for assignments. That would be an assignment-based checklist to ensure that the appropriate items are covered in that assignment. You can also use checklists as a method of assessment by evaluating and self-assessing. In Brightspace, there is a checklist tool, and each checklist that you create has to have one category. So you can have one or more categories in your checklist. and then you would put items into those categories. You can add release conditions to make it to release conditions to the checklist, which would make completing that checklist mandatory. So in other words, a learner, for example, would have to complete a checklist to gain access to an assignment submission folder. And you may recall with release conditions, when you're working with checklists, you can either say that something is released because they've completed the whole checklist, or you can choose items on that checklist that need to be completed in order for something to be released. And I've shown a couple of examples of some checklists here. Release conditions is a workshop that's a part of the Lex Advanced series. And in the Learn Everywhere Zula course, if you want more information or you need to review, you can find a module in the Learn Everywhere Zula course that covers the information that we went over in the release conditions workshop. And you will find the checklist tool in activities and under checklists. All right, so let's take a look at checklists. I'm going to go into, do we have any questions before I go further? No? All right, and so as I mentioned, to get to checklists, you would go to activities and then choose checklists. It will take you to this checklist page. And to create a new checklist, you would simply click on the blue new checklist. And remember, in Brightspace, anywhere there's an asterisk, that means that's a required field. And so I'm going to call this an essay writing checklist. I can enter a description for the checklist here, some information for it if I so choose. And then I can also click this box here if I want this checklist to be opened in a new window when it's viewed. So once I fill in the necessary information here, I can click this blue Save button, and it will take me to the Edit Checklist page. And so the same information that I was just looking at, the name, description, and whether to open it in a new window is here. But notice now I have the opportunity to enter categories and items. And as I said, you have to have at least one category in your checklist. So for this essay writing checklist, I'm going to create a couple of categories. And the first one I'm going to call Introduction. I could put something in the description field, but I'm not. I'm going to leave that blank, and I'm going to click this gray Save and New because I want to create another category. And this one I'm going to call Body Topic, and then I'll click this Save and New. And maybe I'll have one. And maybe a last one for references. So these are all of my categories. I click the blue Save button. And so now I have a series of categories here in my checklist. So what I need to do is add items to that. And if I click on this gray New Item button, what you have to make sure that you do is when you're adding items to select the category that you want to put that item in. I do want to create an item in this first item in this introduction category. And so I will paste that in. I could enter a description or some information in the description field if I so choose. Notice here I have the opportunity to enter a due date. And if I choose the due date here, I can indicate whether or not I want this to be displayed in the calendar. For this, I'm not going to enter a due date. I'm just going to click this gray Save and New. And I will enter another checklist item. And I'm just going to save it. All right. So now you see this is how you build the checklist. There is a restrictions tab up here, and for restrictions, this would be basically if you're applying a release condition to the checklist. I'm just going to go ahead and click Save and Close. And what I want to do is take a look in detail at this checklist that I've already created here, this one called Lab Reports and Scientific Writing Checklist. So if I edit this checklist, you'll see that I've entered some information in the description here, because what I want to do is require the students to complete this checklist before they gain access to an assignment submission folder. So I'm putting this note in here that you have to complete this checklist before you can submit anything to the assignment submission folder.
Got a quick question, Janice,
yes.
from Amy.
Yes.
If the item has a due date elsewhere, for example, a quiz, displaying in calendar and checklist makes a second entry in calendar, which is redundant.
That is absolutely correct. So if the due date is going to be displayed from some other tool, then you're correct. You don't want to display it in the calendar. You can add the due date to the checklist item, but do not click the box that says display in calendar, because you will have duplicate entries. That's correct. Thank you. Good question. All right, so if we look at this particular checklist, I have, I think, 5 categories in here, which basically is indicating to the learners, for your title, have you done these things? Have you looked at this? For your abstract, have you done whatever, whatever? Okay, so this is my checklist. I didn't make any changes to it, so I'm just going to click cancel. All right, now that I've created the checklist, I want to make this checklist available to the students. And obviously they could come here to activities and checklists and find it, but I want to organize the course because I want the course to be easily navigated. I want the students to be able to easily navigate the course. So in content, I've created a module and I'm calling it Lab Reports. And I have some items in this module already. So let's say this was the lab assignment instructions, right? I'm also providing a copy of the rubric, or a link to the rubric here. And I have the assignment submission folder that I'm calling Lab Report Assignment Number 1.
Quick question from, is it Abba?
It is
Yes,
Abha.
Okay.
How are you?
Good.
Hi, Abba.
Can we have the same checklist for multiple assignments? I'm not sure why, but is that possible?
Well, what you would want to do is make a copy of that checklist, because if the students are checking off the checklist for assignment number 1, then they've already checked off the items there. So you would want to have another checklist perhaps for assignment number 2.
So the thing is that, for example, when we make our students write lab reports, most of the part, like the top portion, is usually the same. So I give them prompts on what they should be answering for the conclusion part, which is like the meat of the lab report. And so I do give them those as questions as a separate, and, you know, I just uploaded those documents on Brightspace. But having these checklists, you know, writing the first few portions like the purpose, the chemical structures, data, and all those, they are very similar for all the lab reports. So, I felt that if I could invest some time and then do that. And as you said, I'll copy some portions and write my conclusions for a separate checklist then. Yes.
Right. Yeah, because you could perhaps separate the checklist out so that the items that are consistent between them, that you don't want them to necessarily have to check off each time, but you do want them to do, then have that they could use as one checklist, and then a separate checklist for the others. So you can structure this whatever makes sense for how you're trying to set up your course, if I'm making sense.
Yes, you do. And on a very different note, I have another question for you. Yes. I know that I can use the first name in the announcements, and I do that all the time. Yeah. We can do that on assignments also?
Yes. And that's exactly what happened there. That is a replace string.
Yes. So I just use that same first name thing and.
Yes. As a matter of fact, there's a recent blog post. If my voice of the chat or my backup will drop that in the chat on replace strings. But yes, absolutely. What you need to do is make sure that you're using the correct replace string in the correct place.
I always make a draft and check it before I send the announcement. I always make a draft just to make sure that I put the correct string.
Yeah, right. Because you'll recall in intelligent agents, for example, the replace string that will pull in the student's first name or the learner's first name is different from that replace string that you would use to pull in their first name, say in an announcement or in this. Right. So you just need to make sure that you're using the correct replace string for the correct place that you're trying to put it. And because you brought that up, I did with this assignment here, this lab report assignment. I have this open in this tab right here, so you can see exactly where this is coming from and what I'm doing. And that replace string is here, right?
Yes, that's the one I use.
Correct. And then so these are the assignment instructions. I've attached a rubric over here to this particular assignment. And so when it appears, when I've entered it as an existing activity in this module, all that information, that's the instructions, will appear here. Now, what my intent is for this example of what I'm doing is that I don't want this assignment submission folder to be released to the students until they complete that checklist, right? So with that said, they're not going to see this at all or any of these assignment instructions, any of these instructions. So that means I need to make sure that any information they would need, they need to see that somewhere else, that I have it built out somewhere else. And so here, if I go to existing activities and I choose checklists, I have the two checklists, the one I just was playing around with, and then this one here is the one that I want them to be able to fill out. Okay, and then the system puts it in, but it drops it here as the last, in the last place. I'm going to reposition it. All right. So right now in my module, the students would come in and they would see the assignment instructions. They can see the lab report rubric, and then they have the checklist. And I want to then indicate to the system that I want to put some release conditions on this assignment, that they have to complete that checklist before this assignment submission folder is released. And so I can do that quickly by editing properties in place, or I could have edited the assignment, and here under dates and restrictions, I can create a release condition based on a checklist, a completed checklist. Notice you have the option as well to do checklist items, but I want them to have completed the entire checklist. And then I need to check to select which checklist. And then there is an update button when you do this. So I'll click update. And now the release condition is attached to this particular assignment, right? So if I view this course as a student, and I go into the content area, the student sees the assignment instructions, they see that rubric, and then they see the checklist, but they will not see the assignment submission folder until they actually complete the checklist. And so the intent is that they would click on this link, and then I have a note here as well, indicating that you have to complete this checklist before that submission folder will be released to you. So they have to have some way of knowing that I need to do something. And then notice this progress bar. So as I'm checking off items, the system updates the progress bar. When this is at 100%, so they would have to have checked off everything here, then the that assignment submission folder would be released. I attached a rubric to the assignment submission folder. And so if the students were able to see that the assignment submission folder before they completed the checklist, they would have access to the rubric. Since they cannot see that assignment submission folder, that means they don't see the rubric. So I have to have some other way to provide the rubric to them. And with quick links, so if I go into this lab reports rubric, with quick links, I can actually create a quick link to the rubric. And if I click on this, the rubric opens in a new window, so the students would actually be able to see the rubric in advance of those instructions. So that's why that's there. All right, so any questions? I'm going to stop.
Trying to unmute. Okay. Yeah, there's a good question from Amy, who is obviously looking ahead to the end of the semester. Is there a way to bulk edit dates in checklists? I guess kind of like we do in the assignments area.
Correct. That is a good question. When you use the manage dates tool, then you can bulk edit the dates in a checklist. That is correct. On the wiki that my producer dropped into the chat, there is a link to that blog post about date management. But that is one way to be able to work efficiently with dates, to use the date management tool and then go in and bulk edit dates. All right, and so, any other questions before I go on?
I have a very non-checklist question.
Okay.
So the thing is that I have a syllabus quiz, which is like an assessment tool for the students. The thing is that until the students take that syllabus quiz, they will not be able to look at the actual content, all the folders that I have prepared for the actual class. Okay. How long usually will, and all the release conditions are attached. So many of my students, and I sent that email like a week before we had our class, and only some of the students took that quiz, and that's what I was anticipating, because I was hoping that we will do it during the class. And so during the class, all the students who did it during the class, the syllabus assessment quiz, none of their content came up. And so the students who had taken it before them, so one of the students told me he had taken it a day before, so it had taken almost 24 hours to appear. Did I do something wrong?
No, you didn't do anything wrong. It shouldn't take that long, but there is a slight delay.
Okay, how long?
There is a slight delay. No, usually not more than 5 or 10 minutes. Now Perhaps there was something going on with Brightspace at that time, but it should not have taken 24 hours. But there is.
Yeah, because I asked the students to show me their screen, share their screen with me.
They may needed to refresh
That's what
their web browser. Did they try that?
So I just asked them to refresh the whatever browser they were using, but I didn't ask them in particular which browser it was.
Yeah, or log out and log back in. But
yeah, that too, I didn't do that.
Yeah, but it should not have taken 24 hours. And if they would refresh or go to another page in the course and then
come back,
it should have updated. Like I said, I've not seen it taken that long. Yes, Mark.
Janice, do we have a minute to take a look at the manage dates tool, or are we getting a little bit behind here?
We're getting a little bit behind, but I will look at it at the end if we still have some time, and or if whoever has the question can hang on at the end.
All right, thanks.
Who has the question? She is. Okay. All right. No, I promise I will. Okay.
On popular demand.
Yes, because it's a great tool. All right.
Thanks, Abba, for having my back.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's a great tool. All right. And so in addition to checklists, I do want to mention some other ways that you can help your students stay on track. And one of them is with notification preferences. So everybody can go into Brightspace to their notification preferences and control how they receive information, or they can customize what they want Brightspace or how they want Brightspace to provide them their information. Students probably do not know that. And so you should suggest that they go in to their notification preferences and set up how they want to receive the information. Okay. The Pulse app, students have, without you telling them, a lot of them know that Brightspace has a Pulse app and they can use that on their mobile device. And a lot of students do use this. And in order for the Pulse app to be effective for the students, what you need to do in your course is be putting due dates to assignments and activities. And the Pulse app will then tell the students what they have coming due, so they can better manage their time. So as this blog post says, that this is designed for the learner, but it also benefits the instructors as well. So like I said, the key to this is that if you're not entering due dates on your assignments and activities, then the students aren't going to get that information updated in their Pulse app. They will get announcements and other kinds of things, but it is very important about the due dates. Home pages and widgets. This is one simple but effective way to help learners stay on track, utilizing the widgets that are in your course homepage. And this is an example of Elizabeth's homepage from her course. And she's utilizing the announcements, updates, the work to do, and the calendar widget to help her students stay on track. So in the announcements widget, she has announcement for that week, everything that they need to do, and is right there. As soon as they enter the course, they can see that. What I would suggest is when you are creating announcements, go ahead and put an end date on the announcement when the information in that announcement is no longer valid or no longer current. And the reason for that is the system will retire that announcement when that information is no longer useful. That way, the students don't have a bunch of announcements cluttering that announcement widget, and they don't have to dismiss the announcement. So utilize the end date on the announcements. The updates, of course, tells them, things that they've missed, quizzes that they might not have attempted, if there's some unread discussion posts, that kinds of things. So it's going to keep them updated with that. There is a work to do widget, which was introduced, I want to say, the middle of last year. And this widget tells the students about things that are overdue and things that they have upcoming. And so you need to include due dates on those activities in order for the work to do widget to be helpful to the students. The same with the calendar widget. We were just talking about items being in the calendar widget, so they can utilize that calendar widget as well. You can use you can create events in your course calendar, even for things that would be in your face-to-face class. And then that would be populated in the calendar widget, and that would be something that would also help the students stay on track.
Quick question that Amy
Yes.
has, and I'm going to kind of add to it. If you have an end date, is it deleted or just does it disappear?
It's retired. The announcement is retired. So it's still in the course. It's expired, I think is their terminology.
Okay.
The announcement is still in the course, but the students just don't see it. And so if they've not, in the announcements widget, if you don't have an end date, all of the announcements just appear. If the students want to dismiss an announcement, they can. Some of them don't realize that they can dismiss announcements, and then they just have a long list of announcements.
Right. So you could possibly, when you do the course copy for the next semester, go ahead and copy the announcements and maybe sort through those, Amy. I think that
is exactly. Thank you, Moore, because that is a good point. I suggest that to people, that even if an announcement is valid for the entire semester, go ahead and put an end date after the semester is over. That way, when you do a course copy into the next semester or maybe that next year, those announcements will all be retired and you don't have a bunch of old announcements that are showing up. So as a best practice,
great,
an end date of at least the end of the semester for all announcements, with the exception of maybe your welcome announcement, would be helpful. And then you're right, sort through those announcements and decide which ones you want to make active again.
Cool.
Good point. Yes. All right. And I do want to point out that home pages and widgets is another one of our Lex Advanced topics that we did cover. And that is also in the Learn Everywhere Zula course. So you can find information about that in that particular module. And we were talking about the Manage Dates tool. There is a blog post that explains that. And like I said, at the end of this workshop, I'll double back to that so we can actually see how that might be done. But you can, a lot of times I find that faculty don't necessarily want to put dates on assignments and activities because the date is going to change. And they don't want to have to go back and edit each one, but you can edit the dates in bulk. So this Manage Dates tool will help you to do that. Brightspace does have some tools to help you monitor student performance. And one of them is the class progress tool. And with this, you can get a high level view of the performance of your learners across the entire class. With this tool, you have 4 indicators of performance that you can have, that you can choose to show. And those progress indicators would be grades, content, discussions, assignments, quizzes, checklists, surveys, and the login history. And so this is a screenshot of class progress from my Sandbox course. And here I'm looking at the progress of 4 of these, and this happens to be the content visited, quizzes, checklists, and discussions. So I get a high level view of what the learners are doing. And this tool can be found in Course Admin. It's called Class Progress, right? As I said, it's useful for predictive practices and preventing learner disengagement. So you can look at what's going on with the students, what are they engaging with, where you need to make some adjustments. A class progress tool would be helpful for that. There's also a completion tracking, and completion tracking will tell you who has visited a content topic. So if we look at this page from the Learn Everywhere Zula course, down at the very bottom, there is the completion summary. And if you click on that, you can actually get some information about what the learners are doing. If I want to see
Janice,
who is...
Sorry. Could you just go one step back and show where you got this page from? I mean, I know you were talking about the class progress tool in course admin. And is this where it is, or was it?
No, this is another. This is completion tracking. So when you're looking at a page in your Brightspace course, if you go all the way to the bottom, you'll see something called completion summary. So I'm going to back out of this page and go to, so as the instructor, if I wanted to see who clicked on this, who visited this page, all the way at the bottom, there's a completion summary.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, so it's all the way at the bottom of any topic page. You can go all the way at the bottom to completion summary. And that's what I was attempting to do with this, this diagram.
Quickly, last week I did a tip of the week for my Brightspace, and I went to the completion summary, and I only saw 4 students had looked at it after 2 days. So I put an announcement up saying these 4 students took a look at that video and they got 10 points added to their quiz. And now I don't have a problem with students looking at the stuff.
Right.
So it's really cool.
Yes. So for learner engagement, yes, you can. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
The other thing I was going to add is one thing I do with my students, and I would encourage those of you who are Lex Advanced, right? We are the people on campus Lex Advanced. I would encourage you to do this. I tell students that we can do this. Like I say, look, I show them, I can see who's done this. I can see, like, all of your faculty members can see this. And I think it helps with transparency with students. I think it can help with students' engagement, and also like, whoa, okay, I didn't know this. So I actually share that. I love the idea about like the kind of surprise with points too, but I share it explicitly with students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have a question about the tracking, and it relates to the question Jay asked. I've looked at that and been convinced a student didn't do something. And then I get in there and it's clear to me that the person watched the video or read whatever, but it on my end, it looks like they were only there for 22 seconds or whatever. So it seems like it's measuring something.
Right. So there's some tools that are just telling you if a person clicked on something, so you can use it in aggregate. You shouldn't use it for assessment because it's not foolproof. It just kind of gives you an idea of what's happening. If you're right, a student could get in and actually download something.
Well, it says download if they download it.
Right, but still, they could click on a link or something and then maybe walk off. So did they actually, and it indicates that they were there for a long time. Were they? You don't know. Yeah. So it's not for assessment necessarily, but it will tell you, it should tell you if the student visited that content topic. There was an issue a while ago if students were accessing it through the Pulse app, it wasn't registering. And so maybe perhaps that's some of what was happening. Go ahead, Mark, were you about to say something?
Yeah, Jay asked that question. Is the Pulse app, does that work now? Or?
Yeah, they made some improvements to that. So it should be capturing that information when a student is navigating your course through the Pulse app. It should be. But again, if you see that someone is not, you don't want to accuse them. You may want to make some inquiries, whatever. Yeah. I want to also point out that there's some course content statistics. So if you click on table of contents, you'll see a menu option for related tools. And one of the options there is view reports. And this gives you some information about users who have visited the content in your course and the average time spent. And this gets back to that like 22 seconds and all of that. So it is capturing information about someone clicking, but not necessarily telling you, specifically how long they may have been engaging with that content, but it gives you an overall view of what's going on in the course. So in the Learn Everywhere Zula course, for example, we could tell that there were 238 users who visited content in the course, and the average time people spent in the course was a little over 7 hours, right? So if we want to dig a little bit deeper, we could see, for example, in that learning objectives module, then people spent an average of about 13 minutes in there. A lot of time was spent on reflection. And that's what you would expect, right? People are reflecting about, right? So this gives you a high-level view of what's happening in the course. Just be aware that that information is there. And then this goes to what we were just talking about, that click tracking data. It tells you a lot about how the users are engaging with your content, but it's not dependable enough for you to use it as an assessment, right? So just be aware of that those issues, those items that are depending on the click tracking data.
Okay, so Amy mentioned that she looked at this after Ida to check on her freshmen, and it may have not been foolproof then. Is there maybe a better way to?
Well, you can reach out to the students. If it looks like they're not engaged, then yeah, you can reach out and inquire and see what's going on. Right. And then you can utilize intelligent agents. That this will monitor what's going on in the course, and then you can actually get it to take care of some of the course communication for you. So for example, if a student hasn't logged into your course in X number of days, you can set an intelligent agent up to send an email out to that student and say, hey, I've noticed you haven't gotten into the course in the last few days or whatever, whatever. So you can utilize intelligent agents to help you to monitor what's going on and then take care of actually some of that communication. Intelligent agents is one of the Lex Advanced topics that we did talk about, and it's a module that's also in the Learn Everywhere Zula course. So if you want some information or review, you can go back to that course for that. And then I did this blog post, are your students overloaded with content? And there was someone who was a member of the Brightspace community who had some suggestions about how to create a custom learning path to help prevent information overload for your students. So if you haven't seen this blog post, then I would suggest you go back to it. One of the things that's also mentioned in this blog post is this Workload Estimator by Wake Forest University that you could perhaps use to get an idea of the course workload or an estimate of the workload if you're trying to assign things to the students. And I want to mention also that interactive rubrics was a Lex Advanced topic that we had a workshop about as well. That information is also in the Learn Everywhere Zula course. So if you haven't seen it, you can go there if you want to review. And Learn Everywhere Zula is all over the place. There's a module in there about accessibility and usability. And one of the things we said during this workshop is that your course really needs to be easy for the students to navigate. And so there's information in there that would help you with accessibility as well as usability for your course. All right, so I'm doing a little quick check-in. How are we? I'm hoping everybody's over here on the I'm good to go, but if not, all right. Okay, great. All right, and I started out by talking about Chickering and Gamson's principle number 5, emphasizes time on task. And here at the Center for Research on Learning and Teaching from the University of Michigan, they put together some implementation ideas for this particular principle. Such as communicate to your students the amount of time they should spend preparing for class, underscore the importance of regular work, steady application, self-pacing, and scheduling. Meet with the students who fall behind to discuss their study habits and schedules. And intelligent agents would be great for this because intelligent agents can monitor what's going on and then communicate, send out a communication to the student or give you a report so that you can reach out. Don't hesitate to refer students to learning skills professionals on campus. Use technology to make resources easily available to students. Well, we know one of those technology sources would be the learning management system. So I thought these were some great implementation ideas. I have some tips for you as well as some potential pitfalls. So learner progress tip number 1. Organize your course so it's easy to navigate. Tip number 2. Break down large assignments into component deliverables and have separate due dates. This can help the learners keep focused and stay on task. Learner progress tip number 3, place a checklist at the end of the week, unit, or module. And this is, of course, if your course is set up that way, right? Learner progress tip number 4, insert quick links for course content and activities because your learners can click on the link and just go directly to that. So utilize the quick links. If you are trying to set up a quick link to a rubric, then make sure that you open the rubric up in a new window. I noticed that if you try to open it in the same window, sometimes it doesn't render properly. So just choose the option that you want the rubric to open in a new window. Learner progress tip number 5, use due dates and display in calendar to give visibility to the learners and offer pacing guidelines, right? Tip number 6, when applying release conditions to checklists or anywhere really, make it clear to the students that they have to complete this checklist to gain access to content that you apply the release condition to, because they're not going to know. So you really need to, in your own way, give them that information to let them know that you have to do something in order for this to be released to you. Potential pitfall number 1, and we've talked about this, avoid duplicating the due dates in the course calendar. So when you choose that display in calendar option, only choose that if you've not displayed that due date somewhere else, like in a tool or something. Potential pitfall number 2, your learners may not use the checklist if they don't have an incentive to use it. So you can utilize release conditions to force them to complete a checklist to gain access to some other information, content, or activity. Potential pitfall number 3, fatigue. Your learners may feel overwhelmed if you break down the assignments into too many components, or they may become numb to reminders if they get too many. Okay. All right. And here's this thumbs up, thumb down. I see value in utilizing Brightspace to help my students stay on track. I certainly hope everybody's over here to this thumbs up. I see some thumbs up. All right. And I want to remind everybody, I think you all probably are, but if you're not, subscribe to the Cat Food blog, because this is where we're posting information about Brightspace, timely tips and all. And then I do have a raffle. We are going to raffle off a copy of Atul Gawande's book, The Checklist Manifesto. And my helper, I've got names in the window. Okay. So I've got 7 names. That's everybody, right, Elizabeth? Okay, great. So we are going to, we've got 7 here. I'm going to spin the wheel and see who is going to win a copy of Atul Gawande's Checklist Manifesto. It's spinning. Number 6. Okay, number 6 is Abba. All right, you get a copy of this, and just put in the chat, you know, how you want us to get it to you. Do you want us to put it in campus mail, or you want to pass by the office? You want us to mail it to you? Just put that in the chat, and my producer and all will help me out on that. Okay, all right, and so to finish up here, so we're great on time, I do want to remind you that the workshop slides and the resources are there, and as soon as the recording for this is produced, we'll get that up on the wiki, and you can find that at catwiki.zula.edu/on-track. Okay, and then we're going to get to Elizabeth's question about the date management. I do want to point out that you will get an evaluation for this workshop. We do value your feedback. So when you get that, if you would just fill that out and get that back to us. And your attendance here in the workshop today has earned you this Learner Progress badge. You will see this in the Learn Everywhere Zula course. And as Elizabeth mentioned, that is a part of the Lex Advanced certification, so you will see that. All right, and just because I can, I'm going to give you some confetti. All right, now going back to the date management question. This course doesn't have very many dates in it, so I'm going to go to my sandbox course that has stuff with a lot of dates. Except I don't know if I have any checklists that have dates on it. So from course admin, I can find date management or manage dates here. So I click on manage dates. The thing to remember is that I can see dates for all tools when I have this box, this radio button checked. But if I only want to see specific tools, then I click this radio button and see if I wanted to see dates for checklists. I would say I want to see specific tool. I want to see checklists. I can check off most, more than one of these, and then click on this apply filter. I'm not sure that any of my, none of these checklists. This is a sandbox course. This is nobody's class. Yeah.
Janice said, thank you. That's going to be, I just wanted to see where it was, and I can take it from here. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, if I had some, let me do assignments. Maybe I got something, a date in there. Yeah, right. So if I wanted to edit dates in bulk, see, I could check off several of the, if I wanted to change the dates for these two, for example, then I could check those and then do bulk edit dates. It brings both of those forward, and then I could check, I could change the dates. So just play around with date management. All right.
I find the the bulk offset dates actually really useful once you kind of get used to using it, because you can just basically put in like the first day of classes from the old semester and the first day of classes for the new semester, and it'll convert every date accordingly. If you might need to make some tweaks, but
yeah,
it does. You don't have to do any math. So
great, thanks for that tip. All right, I am going to, unless someone has a question about something in particular, I'm going to stop sharing, and that way we can stop sharing. Okay, it's nice seeing all of your smiling faces. All right, Elizabeth, do you have any parting words? I see you typing.
I was typing. I've got to run to a 1 o'clock meeting. Thanks everybody for being here. Janice, oh my gosh, so wonderful learning from you. But thanks everybody for coming. Thanks for, even in these crazy times, being committed to your own professional development and your own students. We really appreciate you. All right. Thanks, Janice. We'll see you at the next one.
All right.
And we'll keep sending special invites to the Lex Advanced people. We will, Catherine. Bye.
thanks, so.
All right. Y'all take care.
Bye, everybody. I got to run. See ya.